Okay, so today we will go over the robot framework testing, which we wrote for end-to-end tests of ORAN project. In the framework we wrote, we try to test especially our components, meaning E2 manager and E2 term. So one principle in in all tests, we didn't do restarts of E2 manager and E2 terms during all the tests, unless this is part of the test, like if we want to test the restart of E2 manager, we did of course restart, but when we execute multiple tests one by one, E2 manager and E2 manager and E2 term work continuously. So we want to see that our components are working well for a long time. There is no dependencies in the tests. So if we had to do a scenario which has to add ENB and after that GNB, we didn't do it in multiple tests. We do it in the test, in each test separately. And we test because the automation is considered as a lot of effort. For example, via unit tests, we did a lot of unit tests and a few scenarios of robot framework tests, especially for the happy scenarios. We will see examples of happy scenarios later. So the basic structure of the framework, just one question, did you work with robot framework in the past?
We have not worked, but we are aware of this.
Okay, so basically we have a few folders in the tests. There is the resource folder, which includes the resource file and keywords file. The keywords file is a kind of block which will be included in tests. This is reused code in multiple tests. So we define blocks like get request node B, which its arguments is, for example, node B name. This is the argument of the path in the request will be run name, and it will trigger get request with this structure, the get node B request and its parameter, the node B name, for example. This way, if we want to do get request node B in multiple tests, we will only call the title block, the name of the block, the get request node B, and it will be triggered. So all the keywords file includes a lot of blocks, and if you want to do parameter assignments, you will use the $sign. So we have the get request node B and the update G node B and ENB As you can see, it's very simple structure for these blocks. The run name, the update GNB body, and so on, all the parameters are defined in the resource file. I will go over the resource file and go back to the keywords file. In the resource file, each parameter is a textual parameter, so it can include identifier of something, JSON, full JSON for the request, or Kubernetes command. It can be anything. We have a few sections of parameters. One, the first section is all the parameters which are related to the REST APIs when we want to test ADNB or AGNB update and so on. So we have multiple parameters for the REST APIs. Of course, this is static parameters. So it's expected to be specific values. This is not dynamic at all, except the ENB run name, which is defined here as static. So you can see you can include another parameter in the value of another parameter. The second section related to the Kubernetes commands. Basically, most of these parameters are for stop and start services, components, and so on. If you want to start E2 manager, E2 term, Redis, and routing manager, and so on. When we start, when we stop, we start one of the components or all the components. We're basically waiting until we verify that the service is up and running. The component is up and running. So we won't start the test without verifying that the service is responsible. So we have, again, this is a static number of pods. And when we restart all pods, we expect to, we are polling the number of pods, the get pods command, until we see there are 6 pods, or the timeout is expired, meaning something went wrong and we don't have all pods, all expected pods running. And if we stop one of the pods, let's say we stop routing manager for one of our tests, we expect to see only 5 pods. The last section is for logs. Each test basically cut the log of all components and save each log in separate file. The cutting and of the log is starting from the timestamp of the test started, and we basically we have each component log in separate files, so we can understand what happened. And if we want to verify that something is or is not in the log, we can verify against the component log. For example, if I expected E2 term will send init, and I expect to see receive message type 1100 in E2 manager, I can verify it against E2 manager logs. Okay. So this is a resource file. The keywords file is using the parameters from the resource file. So for example, update GNB body is the JSON which was defined in the resource file. Okay, so the first block here is the REST APIs. You can define, of course, get, put, post, delete as you need. There are a few blocks which uses Python scripts from the scripts folder. For example, when E2 Manager is initialized, there is a script that running in dbus in Redis and insert key values parameters, general configuration parameters. So when we run the tests here, we expected to see the general configuration in a database, and if E2 Manager is not see these parameters, it will fail in the initialization. So we have to mock this behavior in the database. So when we will run this block, set general configuration request, it will put these parameters to Redis. This is JSON as well. Okay, regarding the scripts I mentioned earlier, I will show you in a minute. Okay. Okay. When we start each test, we remove all log files from the folder, and as I mentioned before, we cut the log from the timestamp that the test was begin until the end of the test. We can cut the log multiple times, and we will have a few sections to check. So we have remove log files and save logs, and we save the log in a folder. There is one bug, as I remember. The logs will be saved in the folder which we are running the tests. So if we will, for example, will be in a home user and we will run robot and the path to the robot test, the log files will be saved in the home user folder. So be careful. This is a bug. Be careful with that. If you don't want that all the folder, all current folder will be filled with a lot of logs. Okay. Before I will continue in the keywords section, I want to show you the scripts folder. For example, we have script named cleandb. Cleandb basically will, as I mentioned before, we expect to see general configuration like enable rig equals true in order to work with the incoming requests. So we have to put these keys in the DB, and this is for example the cleandb script behavior. So basically we are extracting the service IP of E2 term, and it's build the E2 term address, IP and port, and we are going to mock the behavior of E2 term which associate to E2 manager. So we have something like we did setup request, because I don't want to do every time add DNB or add GNB. Sometimes I want to check something like get list of ENBs and GNBs, and I don't want to send now 8 add ENBs, real add ENBs or something like that. So I can fill the database with dummy data, with test data, and this is the script which responsible for that. The set new timestamp is not implemented. Basically, because E2 manager checks the heartbeats from E2 term, if the timestamp of the heartbeat is expired, E2 manager will throw the E2 term. And we have to notice for that when we mock the data, the timestamp should be future timestamp. So E2 manager will respect the current situation and will work. And the E2 term will continue to send heartbeats as expected, and the flow wasn't crashed. E2 manager wasn't closed the session. So we basically put always timestamp with future time for the heartbeat. The else we try to support failure in the heartbeat, but we couldn't. So the else, if I remember right, not in use. Okay. So when we call this clean-db, we expect to get Boolean parameter, true or false. It's always true, and we always put future timestamp in the database here. Okay.
Yeah. So, Suki, so this is the case where we are trying to simulate uh, keep alive, expire, and then in DB we are putting keep alive with the future timestamp so that
No, the future timestamp is for the not expired scenario. We want that the scenario will be work perfectly. So we put the heartbeat in the future until the E2 term will send its own heartbeat, and the scenario will continue to work. If I want to simulate an unhappy scenario with the heartbeat, I have to put expired heartbeat, and this is what we try to do here.
so
So we try to put heartbeat 5 minutes ago, which expired, which its timestamp is 5 minutes ago, but it didn't work well. So the unhappy scenario of the heartbeat is not supported yet.
okay. So
In the testing, of course. Yeah.
so here 300 second, I mean the 5 minute which we are putting it. So with that, I mean E2 manager will assume E2T is now not alive, right?
Right. Right.
So
And with the 2 minutes here, E2T assume that E2 manager, excuse me, E2 manager assumes that E2T is alive and send it timestamp, so he will wait for the next expected timestamp, and the E2T pod will send real timestamp, real heartbeat. So the scenario will work as expected here.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. We have additional scripts, like we want to verify if one is associated with E2term instance, and if E2T instance is not associated, has no ones associated with, and so on. And again, if we want to populate the DB with specific data, we are mocking the data as you see here. Okay. Okay. By the way, this is a script that someone wrote, and he wrote in which test case is relevant. This part of this section is relevant for this test case. So you can see which method is relevant to which test case. Okay. We have two scripts which are related to the log. Meaning when we cut the log and we have a file, we want to find an error or RMR message in the log. We have a few attributes to search. Sometimes we have MEID and we want to base on this attribute as well. Sometimes we don't. But those scripts help to search in the log and verify that the test passed okay or failed. We have scripts that mock a lot of data of RAN or multiple node Bs, multiple nodes. Yeah. As you can see, this is mimic. This is mocking the Redis data. So it's in hexa. It's like after the protobuf. Okay, we have a Kubernetes script in order to understand what is the service IP or pod name of something we search in order to restart the pod, for example. And we have the Redis monitor part. Redis monitor, basically Redis monitor is a log of the Redis. This is part of Redis, not part of our components. And we, in the Redis monitor, you can understand, you publish in a channel a message, and you can see the published message. So if you publish RAN manipulation added in channel, RAN manipulation added, update, delete, or RAN connection status change, connected, disconnected, and so on, you can verify in Redis log, Redis monitor log, that you can see those messages. And in order to kill the Redis monitor process, it was very tricky. This is the only way I found to do this. Although to start the process, there is an easy way to kill the process. It was very tricky. So we have to run bash script in sub process and kill Redis CLI. Okay, this is a few parameters which we are using in other scripts. So I'm going to go back to the keywords. Okay, the prepare environment block is very important because in each test we will call to prepare environment. We will define if we need to restart a few pods. I will show you which pods or not. And as I mentioned, the set news timestamp is by default equals to true. Okay, so we do init logs. This is basically the cutting of preparing the logs of the components. After that, we will do a flash and populate DB with the initial parameters as I show you from the script as I show you before. We keep sleep 2 seconds just in case, and we expect that the result of the script will be true. After that, we are going to run this block, restart routing manager at GAB simulator, if the need to be restart pods is true. And we will wait 2 minutes. We will polling each 10 seconds the number of pods and validate that the number of pods will be required number as I mentioned before. Okay. Okay. So if we want to, for example, to restart routing manager and GNB simulator, we will do restart routing manager. Each restart has its own block, and this block is includes log to console, which is log to terminal basically, and stop and start. Each restart has stop and start separately for each component. And we will wait again 2 minutes, polling 10 seconds every 10 seconds, and validate that pods are up. What we will have here. Okay, if we want to stop all pods except simulator, so we have a block for that. If we want to send ENB setup request from the E2 adapter, this required the GNB simulator sends the GNB setup request automatically when it starts. For using the E2 adapter, we had to do manually the CLI sends the E2 setup request action, and this is the difference between E2 adapter and the GNB simulator. Okay, this is the section for start Redis monitor. As you can see, there is a keyword in the robot framework start process, but the stop process didn't work well. As I remember, it's because there are multiple processes of the Redis monitor, and we couldn't control all the processes. So only one process closed, and this was not enough. So I wrote a script for stop Redis monitor process, and we call it here. Okay. Okay, when we want to verify something in the Redis monitor logs, we have a script, as I mentioned before. We give the file, the log file, the run name, and what we expect to see, what was the event, and we verify that the message existed in the log. Okay. So
In this one, Suke, if we write exit, it would not go away. I did not get why specific kill is there.
I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat?
You said that you have written a specific kill for the Redis CLI, right?
Yes.
And in that you are doing kill -9 something.
Yeah, you have a script, so you just have to the behavior is defined here. So if you want to start Redis monitor and after that stop Redis monitor, you just have to call the block names. I will show a test in a minute. So you
Yeah,
don't have to do anything with the sub process and kill -9. You just need to work with the blocks.
yeah, right.
Okay.
What I was saying, instead of my kill -9, we could have given exit.
Oh. Okay.
Might be another approach.
Okay. Okay. So we have the init, which is start clean. So we called it a_init just to verify that it will worked. This will be the first test, and here what we are doing is basically stop all pods and restart with a specific order all the pods, and waiting and verifying that each pod is started successfully. This will run once at the beginning of the suite, and
Suki,
this is
what is
only
this
clean start.
restart simulator? Which simulator you mean here? Is it G0B simulator?
Yes, the GNB simulator. This is clean start. This is before all tests. It will
Yeah.
run once.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So if we want to go over a few tests here, we had, for example, just a sec. Close. For example, we have ADNB, happy scenario. So we want to do REST API call. So under the settings section, it's like import or including the dependencies. When we want to use the REST, we have to give the URL, and we want to do it dynamically. And again, this was the only way which I find to pass the URL dynamically, meaning you can't put here $e2 manager addresses. It doesn't work. So we had to do it like this. And in the test case, yes, in the test case, there is a setup section which will happen at the beginning of the test, and tear down which will happen at the end of the test once. So in this test, we start Redis monitor. We are calling prepare environment with false. So we don't expect to restart routing manager and GAB simulator again. We did it in the init test. We don't need to restart them because we don't expect to receive any setup from downstream from the run. We are going to simulate ADNB from the rest, from the dashboard. So we don't need to do any restart of the pods. All the pods are up and running at this point. We will send ADNB request. The request will include this body, which is defined in the resource file here. We will do post to enb URL with a request. The mechanism of this library is getting the response, and we can verify in the response that the status is 201, and the response body includes run name with this name, and the connection status is disconnected, and so on. We cut the log and save the log, and verify in Redis monitor logs that we did publish to manipulation channel this ENB name with event added. We expected to see it in logs. If it doesn't exist in the logs, the test will fail. And after that, we will stop Redis monitor. So this is one example of REST API tests. And we have a happy scenario and unhappy scenario, like we try to do ADNB with the ENB type NG, which is not handled by E2 manager, and therefore we got 400. Okay, E2 setup, for example.
In E2 setup, it will go in same way, right? First init.
Yes, this is from the REST API, so this is not the example I looked for.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, this is from the E2 adapter side. Okay, this is what I looked for. In this example, we want to get the setup from downstream. So we start the Redis monitor and prepare environment. Again, prepare environment, there is default values if I don't pass any values. So if the values are default, you don't need to pass any value. And meaning in the prepare environment, meaning we don't do any restart for any pod at this point. And we are going to cause send E2 adapter to send setup ENB setup request. So as I showed you before, we are do restart for E2 adapter, and after that triggers the request from E2 setup, E2 adapter side, and we expect to receive in E2 manager the E2 setup request from E2 term. After we get the request, we verified that we publish in the manipulation channel ENB run name updated and connection status connected. Okay. After that, just to be sure, we are doing the get request, the REST get request for this ENB and verify that this ENB is stored in the Redis successfully, and we get the expected values using the get request. And in the end, we stop Redis monitor. And we have basically we have a lot of tests which use the blocks I showed you before. For example, if we want to see get all nodes real, so the real thing is that we triggered real request, not mocked it in the database. So we did ADNB request from the REST. We call once to get all node IDs to see that there is node. Just a second, please. Yeah. This is an example. This is what I looked for with the value true. This is an example that we want to restart the GNB simulator, because once we will restart the GNB simulator, it will send GNB setup request, and E2 manager will handle this request. So after doing this in the init phase of the test, we have already GNB in the database, real GNB, real request in the database, and we add another one, ENB, using REST. So now we have two node Bs in the database, and we call the REST API get all node ID, get all node IDs to verify we have two, and we want to verify their values. But when we call the get all nodes and we go to Redis and get all nodes from Redis, the result is not deterministic. One time the ENB will be the first, another time GNB can be the first. So we had to do a workaround to verify which is which node B is returned as first result. So we just check in the body of the get all nodes if in position F as the first entity is ENB or not. If this is ENB, so we will verify GNB values at body position 1, meaning this is the second entity, and the ENB will be the first entity. If it is opposite, we will do the verification in the opposite direction as well. So if you see this workaround, just know that get from the Redis is not deterministic. It can switch the entities in different executions. Entities order, of course. Okay. Any questions? All other tests are the concept is was explained. All other tests is using these concepts and do the scenarios. It worked fine. This is just to say that robot framework you can run specific tests. You can run all tests. If you run all tests and there is a failure, the robot will continue to run other tests, and you will have statistics at the end. You have HTML page with all the results of the execution of the tests, so you can see which test was failed and in which block, in which step was the problematic step. Not always the robot framework. It's my opinion. Yeah, it's not very informative. So you have to add logs of your own to understand clearly what happened and which part of the step was failed. Sometimes it was very difficult to understand. You have to add a lot of log to console to understand, but this is a framework, so we work with what the framework can suggest. That's all. All the tests are different scenarios. We have, for example, AppDNB is that created from network, AppDNB is that created from REST, AppDNB unhappy, which NBA does not exist, and so on. Again, the unhappy scenarios, we implemented unhappy scenarios only if it was very easy to do, because this is end-to-end tests, and we focused on the happy scenarios. Okay, so any questions?
Yes, Suki. I think while you were presenting the E2 setup related test cases, please come there. Yeah, E2 setup. Yeah, this one. So in this, since you are testing it with G-Node simulator, right? The
Just a second, the setup ENB, for example.
or you can see init also, like what we do in that init robot. So
Here,
yeah. Okay, nothing. So
this is a keyword. Excuse me. Yeah, excuse me. The E2 setup here,
yes.
yeah, it's referred to keyword name E2 setup.
So this E2 setup you are sending via G-Node simulator, right? Or intermediate you are using something.
A second, please.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what what is the meaning of this? I have to check.
Okay. Okay,
Is it
no
something
problem.
we did or something we stopped working on this project a couple of months ago, so I'm not sure if this is something we did or something others from Samsung Group did. I'm not sure. I can check it, and
Okay,
I will this.
okay, not an issue. Yeah, we can. I think Subhash also in the call. Any input to this, Subhash? Okay. So that below, I think that setup enode be robot test case. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this, I could see you are making this you are simulating a uplink traffic only, right? Like eco setup, which is happening from G node B simulator side, and then E2T will receive that, and further it will send pass it to the E2 manager, right?
Just a second. This is setup ENB from the E2 adapter side.
Okay, though it is from E2 adapter, so it will first go to E2T, E2 terminator component, and
Yeah.
from E2 terminator it will go to I mean via RMR it will finally go to E2 manager, right?
Right.
Right. So, my this is the uplink flow. I mean, from G node B towards E2 manager. I
Right.
was yeah. So that case we are validating. Is there something we do validate which from E2 manager towards G node B or E2 adapter? I mean the downlink flow. How we are validating those things? Any E2 related
Like what? Like responses, for example, or like REST APIs?
yeah, responses, I mean.
Okay, just a second. This is an example for failure message, but no, I don't think we validated the responses in the RMR
Okay. We-
because we expected we expected to see the values in the database, and we verified against the Redis. But
Yeah,
I don't think we verified in logs the way to downstream. I don't think so. Just a second.
I mean, E2T will be handling both uplink as well as downlink flow, right?
Yeah,
Uh, So the uplink flow is with this E2 setup request, it goes to it accepts and then feeds into database, and then E2 manager receives RMR and then it finds into database. So that is one direction uplink flow. But if it is succeed, even E2 manager will be sending some request, right? Like it even sends keep alive and all, right? Keep alive and other things. So even in the E2 manager it will be receiving those keep alive and then again responding, so both the components are maintaining the heartbeat. So those kind of validation we don't do. I mean, not I'm not talking only about keep alive, but like normal end-to-end scenario point of view, we
we don't verify in the simulator, for example, that the response was returned successfully. We didn't do it.
okay, okay. Any idea, like in E2T, from development side as part of UT or as a part of any testing, how they do this kind of validation? Like they need to validate those error message handling or successful responses from E2 manager to E2T. So how they validate those things? Any idea do you have?
Basically, when E2 manager will send RMR success response,
Yeah.
it will written it will be written in the log. So you
Yeah.
can see that E2 manager will send RMR successful message,
Hmm.
but as you said, this is not end to end, meaning if you want to verify all the way downstream, you will have to verify the E2 adapter or GNB simulator log.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can do that because we cut all logs components, so you have the information. You just need to write a little script that will verify the right values, because in the as far as I remember, in the GNB simulator, no, maybe there is a message that setup response received successfully and the XML of the response. So you can do it. We focused on our component in the robot tests, the E2 manager especially.
Hmm. Okay, so basically we were trying to improve the some static analysis on the E2T side. So for that we were trying to simulate the downlink traffic. So how we can do those things? I mean, I was trying to relate it here. The uplink anyways, the E2 setup only which we seen every time is being used. So with that, whatever response comes from E2 manager, with that actually the coverage is not, the static check analysis is not up to mark. So still there are so much of things which we need to cover up. So I was checking how we can do it, but any kind of simulator is not being used as a E2 manager, right? It is always whatever E2 manager responses for E2 setup request is what E2T receives, right?
Right.
Okay, okay.
Responses is only when it comes from the downlink via E2T
Yeah,
and is sent to the E2 manager.
yeah. So okay, I think we need to see how we can do that. Thanks for the info.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions?
So this automation, like it will be running whenever we do any uh, commit to the ORAN repos, right? Always.
No, the robot framework is not was not run automatically. We
Okay,
executed in our local environment
okay,
before do the check-in. So we want to verify that our new code wasn't corrupted the functionality. So we basically the process was that we implemented the feature, ran unit tests and the robot framework, and only after we verified that the functionality which already implemented wasn't hurt, we did the check-in for our new code. But there is no Docker of the robot framework, for example, which can be run on other environments. We had an idea to implement such Docker, but we stopped working on this project a couple of months ago, so we didn't do it.
mhm.
So we basically executed the robot tests only in our VB images of ORAN we had.
Okay. Okay. So this is one practice even we need to try to see execute before we check in anything in the corresponding.
We worked in that way. This is more safety for the functionalities that we verify the functionality is working properly before check-in. Uh, uh, it helped very much to the end-to-end team because when we deliver in the end of sprint, we could be we know that the functionality worked in our lab. Of course, there were some issues when the end-to-end team ran in their labs, but it is expected because they have. We don't always have their components, so there were a few issues in during the year, but not so much. Uh,
So
so it was very helpful to run the unit test and the automation tests before each check-in.
got it. So how, can we do it like per component wise also, or the recommend such the guideline is to run all three components, because I could see here E2T, E2 manager and routing manager, three components related robo test cases were there. So
And the rest, basically, you have to run all the pods here.
okay, okay, all
Yeah. The simulator, if you want to get response requests from downstream, the E2 manager, the Redis, the routing manager, the E2 term, and the E2 adapter, if you want to get
yeah,
ENV requests. So you need at least four, but the test expected that all the pods will run at the beginning. So we expect to see 6 pods.
yeah, yeah. So would you even like to tell like how we are going to run if you have it in any one of the setup? Uh, just like some on command prompt, how does it look?
Please, I didn't hear you well. Could you repeat?
Yeah, would you also like to show how do we run this on uh, our environment?
Yeah, if I had a working environment, I probably showed you, but I apologize. Since we didn't work on this project for the few months ago, I don't have any working environment to show. So I apologize. You just need to, in order to run the tests, you just need to type robot and the specific path to the test or to the folder of all tests, and this will trigger the tests.
Uh, Sorry, I did not get it.
If
In
you
that,
want to run specific tests, for example, you will type robot and the
okay,
path. If you want to run the EADNB happy
yeah,
dot robot, you will type robot space and the path, full path to the file.
okay,
If
okay.
you want to run all the tests, will
Mhm.
will insert the full path of the tests folder.
Okay, okay. All the robot script it will pick and then executes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So I think it is. Yeah,
I think someone from Samsung which worked on one of the features during the last 2 months. I think they already run robot test. Am I wrong?
I mean, maybe Subhas may answer. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not aware of that at least. So,
Okay.
yeah, what?
Subhash is here. Could you repeat the question? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we hear you.
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, did some, I know that few developers from Samsung worked on features in ORAN in the last couple months, right?
Yeah,
think
I was working. Yes.
yeah, okay. Did you try to execute robot tests?
Yes, I tried to run the robot test cases, and I was able to pass the test cases as well.
And did you succeed to do that?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a focal point.
Yeah, sorry. Today, actually, I joined little late. I missed the meeting update, so I missed some part. But yeah, we as part of the RIC 95, we committed to test cases in order to test the RIC 95, and we are able
Yeah.
to run it.
Okay.
Only I observed one thing, that image has to be available at your local machine. I was not able to pull it from the Nexus repository because
Yeah.
the entire name of the file was different. Sorry,
Yeah.
docs.
Yeah. I mentioned this. Yes, we always run the tests from our local environment. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can
And
be the focal point if the other participant want to execute the robot framework, you can help them.
yeah, sure, I can help there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But yeah, at the same time, I was not able to run the robot test case for the E2 simulator because the image was not available in the Nexus repository, and
You mean the E2
actually
adapter?
E2 simulator, E2 simulator.
The E2 simulator. Yeah, there are two components: E2 adapter and GNB simulator.
Uh,
Which one?
I miss what I was testing. Miss like I was trying to bring up one E2 terminator, one E2 manager instance, and one simulator. So that is simulator for the testing the E2 interface. So that represents the E2 node.
Uh, I'm not sure that I'm familiar with the E2 simulator. Maybe it's another component that I'm not familiar with. I know that there is E2 adapter in this simulator. Did you expect to run it? This simulator is sends a request, a setup request automatically, or you have to do something to do that?
It will send automatically.
So,
Okay, it sounds like a GNB simulator worked. I'm not sure what is E2 simulator. Maybe again it's a component which someone else worked with, but in the last couple of months, and we didn't were in the project.
I think we're talking about the same thing because that E2 simulator could act as a GNB node. So it connects with the E2 terminator.
Okay.
Over
Okay.
the HTTP connection.
Okay. So what was the problem there?
The image was not available in Nexus repository, so that is why I was not able to create this instance. So I think locally I need to create it, right?
The GNB simulator.
Maybe you might be having the example, and I am not aware about it. So, do you have any example for GNB simulator?
Um, I think the GNB simulator is not not a Docker. I think. I think they not publish Docker of GNB simulator.
Yeah, exactly. Same topic. Same thing I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
they publish it as a TarGZ or something like that, right?
Right.
Yes,
It is not
yes.
available over the Nexus. Nexus is the
Uh,
place where
I
we keep
think
all our Docker images, right?
I think it's a good question for Toralf. I know our DevOps wrapped it as Docker, but every new version you have to do the same action. You have to wrap it from the beginning. I think the end-to-end Harry from end-to-end maybe can help you because they use the GNB simulator. I think they used. Again, we are not in this project for a couple of months, so I don't know what is going on now. But they used the GNB simulator in the past.
So, Subhas, basically, you had changes in E2 manager?
Yes, as a part of RIC 95,
Uh-huh.
the ticket ID, RIC 95, we did health check of
Okay.
E2 manager.
So, in order to test that, in order to do the sanity for the same, you were simulating the end-to-end scenario, right?
Right.
So in that you were having some GNodeB simulator, and
Uh, yeah,
then
this exact case I was not able to simulate. So I did rainy day test case, not the sunny day test case. It's a rainy day test case. It's like it is failing.
okay, okay,
I'm expecting the fail, and because genome is not available or simulator is not available, so test case is passing.
I think there was a repository for GNB. Oh no, my mistake. No.
E2 sim is the repository, and that does not. We have to build the Docker locally.
Yeah.
If you see my commit about the automation, so there I also mentioned it. Some reason I have mentioned it. So that was the communication between Aidan, me, and I think finally Shuki has merged this commit. There was communication between me and Aidan.
okay. So I mean, Subhash, you also work on the E2T side or only in the E2 manager side?
Currently, E2 terminator side, no commit has happened recently. And E2 manager side, we work, and E2 simulator side also.
E2 simulator.
Yeah.
I'm also not getting that E2 simulator as a component. So
So that is E2 sim.
E2 sim. Okay, okay,
Inside sim, there's a E2 sim.
okay.
Maybe just I will give it to you.
So this E2 sim is like a open source ORAN one of the component, or it is something specific to Samsung you are developing?
Oh, sorry. My mistake. It is in under sim folder. It is E2 interface. My mistake. Sorry.
Okay, okay. E2 interface.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think this is one of the component. I think this is internal tool for testing. This is not
Yeah, I mean,
for the community. I think.
E2
Again, this
interface.
is yeah. Please
Maybe,
go on.
yeah, E2 interface that is also available in Git repository. That is publicly available E2 interface,
okay.
and AT&T is also working on this repository.
E2 interface. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So E2 interface, I mean, will come in between G Node B and E2T, right? You mean?
No. See, what exactly happens? E2 manager communicate with E2 terminator,
Yeah.
and E2 terminator need to talk to one simulator, right? Which represents the E2 node, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the E2 interface has simulator which generates all the E2 related messages like a E2 setup message and a report message or a service update message. So this kind of messages will be generated by the E2 interface.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, Suki, I think that is also named as E2 adapter here because E2 adapter also does the same.
Okay.
Right, Suki? I mean, it is also sending the E2 setup request and all.
There was yeah, but there was multiple components which simulates multiple messages. So I'm not sure this is same
Okay.
component.
Okay.
This
Yes.
is the question for the end-to-end team maybe or Toral.
Yeah. Thorough again.
I think yeah. No.
Yeah. No problem. Okay. Okay. So, Subhash, have you also taken that E2T? I mean, how you are progressing in that E2T side? Any no commit so far, right?
Yes.
Hmm. I think I got to know Samsung is working on E2 Manager,
Right.
some of the features now. So,
Right.
okay, fine. I think then. Yes, okay. I think we can get it clarified with Thoral. I'll also try to know what is that E2 interface and E2 E2 sim. They can tell.
So Suki, Subhash here. So this recording will be available, right?
Will be available. I will upload it to the wiki page which Dan opened.
Okay.
Yeah. And
By the way, for this question of the documentation E2 setup, which you asked earlier, this is just a statement. I don't think this is a functionality of something.
yeah, I also felt same. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's related to the folder. Just all.
Suki, yesterday we had one discussion with Idan regarding RNIP. I mean, RNIP related. He has given how the RNIP database and all those stuff. So, if we want further studies on those items, any reference do you have? I mean, if you know, otherwise, anyways, I'll ask to Iran also. This Redis and Arnib reader writer because this is one standard thing. So any idea? If not, anyways, we'll check with Iran as well.
Yes. I think
Mhm.
it will be more
Okay, got it. Sure,
more useful to check with Idan.
sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So the next KT will happen at the same time, or there is some change?
I think next KT is on 21st, DevOps, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have an invite for that, right? Uh, it's I think today's session was only first rescheduled to 26th and then again got rescheduled.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I apologize. I have to drop.
Yeah. Sure.
You can
Thank
stay.
you.
You can stay if there are no other questions, of course. Does anyone have anyone has questions?
No, Suki.
No, Suki. I think you can stop recording, Suki.
Okay. So I'm going to drop. You can.